Hello and welcome to the Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Caw and I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports' Keith Jackson and Michael Gannon. Guys, how are you both?
Good afternoon. Good.
Oh, very well. The sun's been out this week. It's been quite nice, actually. It's doesn't quite feel as though it's deepest, darkest Alaska now. So we're getting there.
Well, what's that been? 8 months of winter we've had.
I forgot what the sun looked like, to be honest with you. As you can tell, my pasty expression.
That's a nice optimistic way to start the podcast, I feel.
We're always sunshine light on these things.
It's been a busy week as far as Celtic are concerned, really busy. Obviously, we're a good few days. We're recording on Thursday now, a good few days after the trip to Tynecastle for Celtic. But Keith, the kind of fallout from the game has rumbled on, and obviously, as we know now, Brendan Rodgers has been charged and looks likely, I think, to miss the game against Rangers. Is that fair?
I'm not sure you can say likely. I think there's a very good chance, but I'm sure Celtic will put up a strong legal argument as to why that shouldn't be the case. It might be a suspended sentence, they might get a wee slap on the wrist, or they might follow through the SFA, because I think there's an onus on the SFA to protect and to be seen to be protecting their officials, the referees, the guys in the VAR studio. Brendan was a little bit naughty. He went too far at the weekend. I've been highly critical of Rangers for waging a vendetta against Willie Collum. I think that's an effort to pander to the lowest common denominator. And I called it out as that. And I think there's something similar here. And I feel very uncomfortable with it. The sort of calling out John Beaton's role in all of this, naming him twice in the post-match interview with Sky, then doing it again in subsequent interviews. I don't think that was clever. And Brendan knows what this part of the world is like. It's a combustible part of the world. And stuff like that I find really unhelpful. Now, funnily enough, I'm not sure that, by naming John Beaton, he's broken any rules there. So he might not get done for that. But I think the one where he's said that the officials, incompetent, I think was the word that he used. Sorry, I was searching for that there. By using the word incompetent, I think he has. It's a Veritas case. It's black and white, and if the SFA want to hammer him for that, then all the tools are already laid down for him. It wouldn't be difficult for them. Simply can't do it. You just can't call him incompetent or biased. And he did.
I said to yourself, Mick, before we started recording, I actually wasn't sure what the charge pertained to. I didn't know if by naming John Beaton that was enough to get charged. But no. It is really that he's inferred that they're incompetent.
No, Rule 72, inferring sort of bias or incompetence, he actually used the word incompetent in his post-match. So
he was careful because he said, there's no other word I can use but incompetence. Yeah. Now, you can infer anything out of that. I infer from that he would like to have used another word, but he thinks incompetence is probably the best one to use. So yeah. It's all hinting at something. But the very fact he used the word incompetence is a breach.
It reminds me of the old line about the referee, and he says, what would you do if I called you a so-and-so? And they said, I'd send you off. He said, what if I said, I thought you were a so-and-so? And he says, well, I can't send you off for your thickness. I said, okay, I think you're a so-and-so. He basically said they're incompetent and he's going to get any bother. It just depends on the level of bother. I mean, I know there's a bit of astucia about the timing of the hearing on March 28th. So it's got the conspiracy theorists are running wild because obviously there's 3 weeks to go till that hearing date. And that puts them right in the firing line for Livingston and then Ibrox. So it's got the tinfoil hat brigade are running wild with it now. I think that the fact is it's not a fast track matter, so it's the next available date for a hearing. It just so happens that's the date. I know Celtic aren't particularly happy with the date either. Obviously, putting it now puts Rodgers in jeopardy missing Ibrox. No guarantee that'll happen either. He might get, like Keith said, he might get a slap in the wrist. He might get a suspended sentence. He might get a 1-game ban, a 1-game suspended, something like that. If he does get banned for Ibrox, I think it'll create another storm. I think Celtic are going to fight this vigorously anyway. They've got 3 weeks to put a legal case together, and I think they'll try and fight it no matter what. I think what they'll do is they'll drag in We'll drag in other examples of managers who've been critical of referees. Well, listen, you don't need to look far this season for VAR officials getting criticised every week. The managers come out and saying things about VAR. I think Neil Warnock's done it every week, done it? I was at the game Saturday when he criticised the VAR again as well. So I think they might say, wait a minute, you aren't doing these guys for saying the same thing. I think Brendan did go that wee step further than some, so he will get any bother. But it's not going to go away, because this year is the end of the month, and then we're going to have an old firm on the horizon as well. So it's there's more fun and games to be had with this one.
It's the use of the word incompetence.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can point every week, you'll find somebody being critical of someone else, but it's the word incompetence. As I said, it's there in black and white in the rule book. That's just a word you can't use.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. I'm not convinced that it will result in a 2-game ban. I'm not saying it won't, but there's plenty of wriggle room for something other than that to be the end result.
Rodgers, he's not a serial offender. This is not a guy who routinely puts a boot into referees. He doesn't do it particularly very often, which is why it was a bit shocking at the weekend.
Well, actually, Mike, you say that, but he has been critical in the past. There have been occasions, and most notably after poor results, or whether it's over. Now and again, he has dug into that locker. It's not.
They all do. They all do, don't they? I mean, it's the art of deflection for managers, isn't it? I mean, a bad result isn't on their team or them. It's always on the officials. It's a handy get out, isn't it? Sometimes for managers, we see it every week, and that's what these rules are, to try and protect referees from managers using their post-match analysis and interviews to take the flack away from themselves.
That's why I'm a wee bit disappointed that we're back in this situation, that we're back talking about these things again, because I think the general consensus was that Rangers were so far out of order when they did it to Willie Collum, and then they did it twice to Willie Collum, and again there was a bit of a backlash to that. I don't think there was any sympathy with Rangers on that one, and rightly so, because we all know what they were doing there. As I said, there's an elephant in the room where Willie Collum's concerned with Rangers, and they were playing that card there. And I think this is just two sides of the same coin, and I don't like it. I don't feel comfortable with it, and I don't think it should be encouraged. And by the way, if the SFA come out and decide to do something strong about it by making an example, then I don't think there's much of an argument against, although I'm sure Celtic's lawyers will be trying to find one.
See, the thing is, as well, is that two things can exist at the same time, because I think Rodgers was wrong to use that language, getting any bother, and perhaps rightly so. But he might also be right in the fact that it was incompetent, because the decisions were really, really bad. The decisions that didn't have to be made, and I think he has a point. I think the decisions were really borderline incompetent.
Well,
by the way, I also think Rodgers should have done himself a favour by mentioning the fact that Celtic got a penalty kick. There was also never a penalty kick.
By the way, it stiffens his argument, because he just says this is general incompetence. I'm not saying there's one guy or it's against one club. This is just incompetence. That was never a penalty to us. It should never been a penalty to them. And we can have a fight or roll around in the mud about whether or not Yang should be red carded. But yes, and you and I can call it incompetent, Mick, but we don't have to by the SFA's rules on it.
No, that's what I'm saying. The irony is that you can't say it even if it's fairly true. Do you know what I mean?
We can,
but we can say it. And I don't think it was a Celtic penalty. I don't think it's a red card. And I don't think it's a Hearts penalty. And that's the three big calls that either one of them didn't go to the monitor, the other two did, and I think they got them all wrong. And I can understand why Rodgers would be pulling his hair out at the end of the game, because it's a title race, it's tight, the chance to go top of the league again, and he'll feel that those decisions contrived against him, even though he did get a penalty kick that wasn't, as I say. So I can totally understand his frustration, but the rules are the rules in terms of your post-match comment.
By putting Beaton up was the human pinata on it. There's no doubt about it. See, if you actually go back to the start, right? Celtic get the penalty they shouldn't get. If either scores that penalty kick, we're not having this conversation. I'll tell you for why. One, Celtic most probably would have gone on from there to win the game. And two, because as a result of the missed penalty, the ball then breaks out to the wing, and that's when Yang puts up his boot on Cochrane and he gets the red card. So, Well, yes, there's a certain amount of sympathy. Celtic brought it on themselves. The performance wasn't good enough. And by the way, let's not forget, because this is overshadowing a lot of the truth of the matter is Celtic haven't been good for too long. And this was another substandard Celtic performance. And you can paint it whatever way you like, and you can point a finger at referees or Clydesdale House. But the bottom line is Celtic aren't taking care of their own business. And that's why they're in this position.
Well, see, this is the key thing as well. I think I agree with you, actually. I think that even with 10 men, Celtic never looked like getting a result at the weekend. And if that's something, if you look back to Rodgers' first spell in charge, I think he had 8 or 9 red cards in 2.5 seasons and never lost. That's the first time he lost with 10 men with Celtic. It used to be that Celtic, and they went to Ibrox and won with 10 men, famously, in the 3-2 game. But they never looked, and especially when Hearts took the lead, the game looked done. The game looked finished at that point, and it looked as if anything Hearts were going to add to the advantage at any point in time. And that's something that I think that has been lost in the wash. Celtic weren't very good at the weekend again, and it's been happening pretty often this season, hasn't it? They've only played in fits and starts in certain halves of games and all that stuff, and I thought they were fairly poor again on Sunday.
Funny you say that, Mick, right? But he did what he did as soon as they sent it off. He's done what he's done previously. He went to 2 up front because Maeda coming off the wing, he basically sacrificed the wide areas, and well, you know what? It didn't really work. I thought in the second half he then puts Kyogo on, and he's really almost playing with 3. He's got either through the middle, Maeda and Kyogo. They're almost playing like a 4-2-3. And I thought for a period at that point in the match, I thought Celtic might nick something back. But again, you know, as we keep saying, and we've said over and over this season, it's not good enough to play for 20 minutes in one half and 20 minutes in another, or 45 minutes here and 45 minutes there. And that's been the story of Celtic season. And it's ended up in this situation where we're now in a heightened state of anxiety, and everybody's looking to find spooks under the bed and accusing this one of that and the other one of something else. And the bottom line is, it's all on Celtic.
Guys,
anybody who tries to say otherwise is blinding themselves from the truth.
We can't have you guys agreeing. It's not very good for the podcast. So if we could get to something
that doesn't happen very often, in fairness.
That's true. It's a rarity. Just on the decisions quickly, though. I mean, I think I've not met anyone that reckons the Iwata penalty was a penalty, but the Yang one was a little bit more complicated. I mean, I personally think it was a very harsh red card, but I could kind of see how they got to a red card, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I thought it's on the soft side, but you know, if you're going to have your foot that high, I'm afraid that is endangering an opponent, and that's the rule. You know, Hearts will argue that he could have had the boy's eye out with one of his studs. You just can't do it. You can't have your foot at that level. And I rather suspect that what's happened here is that at full speed, I wonder if Don Robertson's seen it as fully as you would do. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to look. And that's the whole point of VAR, is that, do you know what? I'll have another look at that. Did my eyes deceive me? Did I see it properly? Oh, I've looked at VAR. It's hard to mount a defence, and I wrote it. I didn't think Yang would have a leg to stand on, pardon the pun, on the appeal, because for that specific reason, his foot is above head height. You can't.
It's never a red card. It's a high boot. High boots have been going to football for years. By the way, I love that phrase. He could have had his eye out. Has anyone ever actually lost an eye on the pitch ever? I mean, it's like your mammy. You can lose your eye. You get your eye taken out with that. I've never met anyone lost an eye at any point in time. It's utterly not. I mean, it's a high boot. High boots happen every single match. It's never a red card. There's no malice or intent or force behind him.
No malice.
It was like putting his toe into a hot bath. It was no force in that. Even if he had made contact, the worst of it had about a wee scratch in his cheek. It's more dangerous putting your head in there to meet the ball. That's more dangerous than putting your foot up that high. It's never a red card in a million years. There's high boots every single week in football. I'm just not having that as a red these days. I know the rules and all that. There's no excessive force. They're not endangering anyone with a bit of plastic stud at that pace. No chance.
You are endangering an opponent if you put your boot that high. You just are. It's just a fact.
Your head's more dangerous than a plastic boot.
I know, but that's where you're meant to go and use your head at that point.
He's in head first, and the two in clash heads. That's more worse, not dangerous than a foot that high. It's like his toes hanging up in the air like a can dancer. It's never dangerous.
A different argument, Mick. You're conflating two issues here. But I think there is enough more potential for serious injury with a clash of heads. But at the same time, you just can't wave your boot around, 6 foot in the air. Just can't do it.
That's why it's a free kick and maybe a booking. It's never a red card.
That would have been my. And again, I wouldn't be the first person to say it. I think Don Robertson probably called it right at the time, but VAR is there to say, Don, do you know that might be higher than you think? You might want to come and look at that. Now, by the way, if Don Robertson sees on the video what he's seen with his own pair of eyes, then he's fixed his decision. And Don Robertson has been called across by VAR previous in the season. I think at Ibrox, when Dujon Sterling gets sent off, called the monitor and stuck by his decision then. So he's shown that he won't be dictated to by who's sitting watching the telly. He'll make his own mind up based upon what he sees when he looks at the screen. And on this, he thought it was red. And Celtic then lose the appeal, Mick. So whatever case you're putting forward is being ignored by everybody else apart from you.
Well, this is a very common theme for my existence as well. But I just think Don Robertson is 10 yards away. He gets a feel for the instant. He made a decision he made right away. I don't think there's been any complaints anywhere if that ball's in the ground and the game goes on, a yellow card for that high boot. Nobody would be complaining. Hearts wouldn't be complaining. Nobody would be bothered. I mean, the appeals process, they're always going to back up their own staff, right? But the still image looks worse than the actual incident in itself. Him hanging a toe in the air for a ball with no force behind it. It was a booking, high feet, free kick, move on.
Why is it a booking?
Because it's a high boot. High boots have been booking since I was playing football.
No, that
long. Never get sent off for a high boot unless it's a kung fu kick.
Doesn't mean to do it. He's sticking his toe in the bath to take the temperature of the water. Give him a booking.
It's a booking.
See,
unless there's an eyeball hanging off his stud, it's a booking.
See, just going back to something you said there, Keith. I think you're right in the sense that I could see VAR coming to Don Robertson and saying, "Look, that was a bit higher. Maybe you should have a look at it." But is that? I thought it was clear and obvious errors. That was the phrase that was thrown about. I thought it was only supposed to be for something you've really missed.
Well, if VAR thinks that there's a case for a red card, then that would be a clear and obvious error. If he's only given a booking.
I guess actually I see what you mean.
The thing for me, VAR is right. That see if the decision to overturn the decision on VAR, see if there's still going to be debate with VAR intervention. What is the point? VAR has to be used to be a be-all and end-all, end of discussion type decision. If there's still going to be debate after VAR, then just go on with it. Let the referee's decision stand. Because what is the point? VAR is meant to remove the debate, not create a new debate.
But it's not, and it's not going away either. So we're just going to have to get used to it.
But VAR's meant to stop the debate, not create a new one. And now it's creating a new one. We can still argue about the same decisions despite VAR intervening.
And do you know the craziest thing about the whole lot is if VAR does its job at the Celtic penalty kick. If VAR comes in and Don Robertson's asked to look at that properly, I don't think he gives the penalty kick, and we're probably not having this conversation because I don't think anybody would have complained about that. It's what happened after that when VAR did decide to intervene that we're having this great debate about. But I think if VAR does,
but that's what I'm saying.
With those thing gets crushed at the Celtic penalty.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Though with those incidents you're talking about, if they have a look at VAR and they say no, it's not a penalty, you're still going to get a debate about it. But not after. But that's having after looking at if it's still inconclusive after looking at the video, then you can't be given these decisions. I mean, there's still going to be debate after looking at the video. You can't give them. It's not a clear and obvious error. It's a subjective decision at that point in time. So I don't understand the point.
The point is, Mick, if VAR steps in and asks Don Robertson to go to the screen and review the award of a Celtic penalty, I think he doesn't give the penalty, and I don't think there is that much of a debate about it because almost to a man, every Celtic fan I've heard talking about it has admitted, yeah, I don't think that was a penalty. I think we got one there.
No, that's what I mean. I'm talking about all these instances, the three of them actually. I think At some point, the VAR said, you might want to come and look at this because of some dubiety. That's not enough. It should be, you might want to come and look at this because it's a penalty, or it's not a penalty, or it should be black and white. It shouldn't be, they're still going to debate after looking at the VAR. Well, if they're still going to debate after the VAR, then they just leave the VAR. It's not clear and obvious.
It's been on for too long, probably, but I'm going to bring this point up, right? If I'm the referee, and bear in mind that these guys are mic'd up, there's communication that goes on. VAR asks the question of the referee, what have you seen? The referee then says, I've seen X, Y, Z, right? Whatever it is. If VAR is looking at replays which show that he's not, that the referee is not saying an accurate reflection of what actually the replays are showing, that is VAR's job at that point, mate. Because VAR's then got to say, well, you've not seen it properly. You better come and look at this. That is what VAR's there for.
No, but it's also, they must have looked at it 3 or 4 or 5 times, right, before saying, come and see the monitor. At that point, they're saying, we've seen it 3 or 4 or 5 times. You might want to come and check this out. If they're saying it's definitely a penalty, you need to come and check this out, then fair enough. Then you'll have to look at what I don't know what they're seeing then. If they're saying, come look at this, we're not sure it might be a penalty, it's not enough for a clear and obvious error. That kind of dubiety, it shouldn't be dubiety. I mean, it's like, you might want to come and look, see what you think again, right? We don't know. We've looked at it 5 times and we still can't make our mind up. At that point in time, that's not what VAR's for. VAR's meant to be a safety net for the things that are clear and obvious, not things that we can debate more.
I think we need to move on from the use of the clear and obvious, because I think that's really been a very unhelpful turn of phrase that by the way, the authorities come up with in the first place, right? I don't think it any longer applies. I think it's simply a case of, have you seen it properly, ref? And by the way, I don't have a great problem with that. Where I've got a problem, and again, this comes back to probably Brendan Rodgers' original point, and many others have said it, and many others are right. VAR isn't really the problem here. I'm afraid it does come down to the competence of the people that are operating it and the competence of those on the pitch. And as we've said right at the start of this, Mick can say that, I can say that, Daniel, you can say it, but I'm afraid if you're a manager or a player, it's out of bounds.
I think it's not just in our country, by the way. It's all over the place. Listen, I thought VAR was a natural step, and I thought it'd be a good thing for the game. Turned out it's Pandora's box, and it's actually now damaging the game beyond repair. Because what it's doing is ruining it as a televisual experience. Because games are taking forever, and you're hanging about. Can't you say about a goal and all that stuff? Decisions are weird all over the world. But what it's doing is it's completely wrecking it for the fans inside the stadiums. Because they have not got a clue what's going on. Not a clue. Yeah. They're literally standing about thinking for 5 minutes at a time. I was in Paisley last week. There was a penalty kick late in the game. 4.5 minutes to find out what was going on. They're checking lines, they're checking phases. And I know they've got to do all that stuff, right? But if you're a punter at the game, it's paid you 28 quid to stand there in the freezing cold and going, what are we waiting for? It's the last minute of a crucial game. We don't have a scooby what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it's at that point now. I mean, that might get better through time and technology and all that stuff, and we might get to a point when it becomes part of the game, we get more used to it. It's still in its embryonic stages, but at this point in time, it's wrecking the game.
You know what I liked, actually? Again, sorry for going off on a tangent, but I'm sure it was at Fir Park when Celtic were there, that the loudspeaker announcement was actually telling the fans on the ground, there's a VAR check here, they're drawing lines. I'm sure that they were doing everything they could at that point to at least, even though they've not got the big screens, to at least keep the people inside the stadium informed of what they were waiting on. I think that is at the very least requirement that our club should have.
Oh, but they do get that. Most places, they do get that. They do get that. But again, they'll go, VAR check for possible penalty. And you go, what? What?
What for?
What for? Nobody's got a clue. Nobody's got a scoop.
We're all still sitting here and we're still looking at the penalty that Celtic conceded at Tynecastle, and I'm yet to hear one person come out with a convincing argument as to why the officials were right with that.
I'm sure the debate will rage on. Before we finish up, guys, a couple of other things I wanted to touch on. We've talked to death about Leila Bada, but it looks like he's set to sign for Charlotte FC in America. 10 million quid. That seems like a pretty good fee to me. I don't know what you guys think.
Is it the fee?
Well, that's the reported fee, of course.
Yeah, I've seen conflicting reports that that's the fee and wages and the whole thing up into one big ball, which I actually think is more plausible than a £10 million transfer fee. I'd be astonished. By the way, superb business if true. But if I was an American club, and I think that's way over their record transfer fee as well, if I was looking at, why would you be offering £10 million for a player that is in such a bad situation at his own club that he can no longer pull on the jersey? So if it's £10 million, somebody has worked an absolute miraculous bit of business there. I'd rather suspect it might be a little bit lower than
that. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, Mick, was Mikey Johnston, who was tearing it up for West Brom. I've got a good mate who's a West Brom fan, and he texted me when Mikey Johnston. He said, "Well, I said he's really talented. You know, he's a good player, but you know, just needs to stay fit." And he texted me last night going, "He's amazing. This guy's unreal." And I think he said 5 shots and goal and scored 4 of them. So he's doing pretty good.
Sensational.
This is symptomatic of Celtic season, isn't it? This is the kind of the Celtic season has got that kind of, it's got a wee bit of hint of the COVID season vibes about it, isn't it, this year? When all that can go wrong is going wrong. It's been, I mean, you chuck in a bad situation, the injuries and like say weird things happening, Brendan Rodgers falling out with reporters over alleged sexism, and there's loads of things that are wacky going on. And now this Mikey Johnston is turning into Messi down at West Brom. They keep popping up clips of him pinging balls at the top corner. Never scored 4 goals in 6 years at Celtic. He's done 6 shots in target at Celtic, and he's putting them in from everywhere at West Brom. I think it sums up Celtic season. The fans are now seeing Mikey Johnston turn into a world beater, having battered the poor boy for years at Parkhead.
Something though that it's the old saying, isn't it, about that it's a heavy shirt to wear, and you wonder if Mikey Johnston, there's never been a question mark over his talent, but you wonder if the more things just didn't happen for him, the more pressure was on him to try and make it work, the harder he had to try every time he stepped out onto the park. Whereas it looks to me as if he's just gone down the road. That pressure's been lifted off his shoulders. He's just playing football, enjoying himself. And he's shown that the talent that we always knew was there, that's still there. It's just whether or not it requires a different mindset to wear a Celtic shirt, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've actually felt from a wee bit Mikey Johnston. I mean, he's a guy, as you said, he's got bags of talent right from a young age. And knew he was. I mean, I remember back in the day when there was a big fight with Scotland and Ireland trying to get his services when he was 14, 15, 16. Terrible injury problems through the years. I remember doing a pre-season with Celtic down in England and Wales, and I think it was Ange just started the job. Ange Postecoglou's first pre-season. He broke down and he was nearly in tears on the pitch, like, oh no, again. And it happened again after that. It just, I mean, a new kind of a new environment for him will do him good. But I say for Celtic fans, when you look at the white guys that they've got now who aren't really doing the business, and you see Mikey Johnston pigging them in from all angles, it's just another kind of kick in the teeth in a season that's proving to be quite stressful for them.
And the irony being, you know, Celtic fans are getting a little bit upset about the amount of money that's sitting in Celtic's bank account that's not been spent on bringing in wingers and all that. Well, Mikey Johnston's probably putting an extra zero on his potential fee this summer. So again, good news for the bank account, but not great news on the pitch.
Mm-hmm. Guys, it's always a pleasure talking to you. We could go on all day, but I think that brings us to the end of today's podcast. Michael, Keith, thanks very much.
No problem, guys.
Catch you soon.
Thanks very much to you listening at home. Cheers.
Cheers.